Ashley from Cleveland Metro Parks Outdoor Recreation. And if you're anything like me, with these warmer temperatures and beautiful days, even though it's still spring, you might be really itching to dust your kayak off and head to your local favorite paddling spot. But there's some things you might want to consider before hopping on the water, especially some safety features on your boat. One of the most important things to know, which most new paddlers don't know, especially if they've never accidentally capsized, is, does your boat float? And you might be asking me, how do I know if my boat floats? So if you look here, we've got two different models that have varying degrees of success. So the only way to really see is just to try it out and test it. But let's talk a little bit about how we might determine if our boat floats and why does it float. If your kayak is upright, it's going to float. But if it's capsized, especially in deeper water where you're not near the shore and you can't swim it to shore or push it, you're going to want to be able to re-enter your boat from the water. So if my boat submerges and capsizes and flips over, it's going to look like so as it fills. So one way that you make a boat float is to have a closed off space that will be closed to water and have air. So air is what makes our boat float. This balloon that's inside of my container is going to demonstrate what that might look like. So this is similar to my boat here. And then some boats have many enclosed air spaces that water will not get into, and it's going to be more similar to just leaving my lid on. So this is a great example of how your boat floats, and it's all about that dedicated airspace that water will not access. So how do we make that happen? Let's take a look. Come up on shore with me. One way to do it is to have a dedicated internal wall. Most boats are manufactured with that. And one way to determine whether you have that internal bulkhead wall is to look for hatches. Hatches are open spaces cut into your kayak. So this one is a hatch and it's an open airspace. That's going to help me determine where I might start looking for that internal wall. So let's just take a look. I've got a variety of boats here. This one has one hatch. This has two hatches. My red kayak here has 3 hatches, which kind of indicates that it might have 3 internal walls. And let's take a look at that internal wall. So this separating divider right here is that internal wall. So this touring or sea kayak actually has 3 internal walls. Why would we want 3 walls? Well, this kayak is more intended for bigger, rougher conditions, like something on the Great Lakes or the ocean. And so it needs to be more seaworthy, whereas my other 2 options here are more recreation kayaks intended for a lake, like Hinkley Lake, where you're not going to be away from shore or encounter the conditions you might otherwise see in our sea kayak. So let's take a look at our last 2 kayaks. And this is a whitewater kayak intended to be used on rivers with swift moving, and it actually has no bulkheads. So what do I look at? It's not that we can't manufacture that airspace. I'm just going to use a float bag similar to that balloon. So I can slip it in to my bow or my stern, and then I can just inflate it. Finally, we're going to look at our sit on top kayak. And what I was talking about mainly refers to kayaks that have cockpits or that you sit inside. This kayak, because it has holes, will always drain itself. So you don't have to worry about whether your kayak floats or sinks. Hopefully, you're going to go out and test your kayak out before hopping on the water.